Paul Cashmere here at noise11.com to talk about The Go Show, and who better to talk about The Go Show? Dennis Smith, welcome in.
Thank you.
We also have Jim Keays and Mike Brady.
Hi, Paul.
And another show coming up. Dennis, the second one.
Yes, they said it wouldn't happen, but it did. No, the first one we did as pretty much as a one-off, no plans to sort of keep going, but the response was so good and so strong, and the audience who came to see the show just loved every minute of it. They started singing from the first, knew the words to every song.
Yeah, they did.
Michael Brady was in the audience for the first one and said,
with my popcorn.
when you do the next one, MPD have got to be part of this show.
Yeah.
And I said, fine. And then Jim and the boys came to me about putting Masters back together again, and here we are.
Yeah.
So Masters Apprentices and MPD, and Dinah Lee is on this one, and Darryl Cotton. So we've got some new faces as well, and of course MPD Limited.
MPD Limited, when was the last time you three got together? Mike, Pete and Danny.
Oh, it's quite recently, really, about 1967.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it seems like yesterday, really. Unfortunately, our bass player Peter died at the age of 27, which was pretty sad. So we've got Will Hewitt, Colleen Hewitt's son, playing bass, and he's Danny's stepson. So there's a fair sort of link there. But it's been a long time, and it's taken a bit of practice. They say practice makes perfect. We've got to try and sort of blow the Masters off the stage, because they were a little bit after us, the Masters Apprentices.
They were a shade.
2 years or so.
Well, during and then after. Because we started in 65, 66, and you were still going then, I think, weren't you?
Yeah.
And then you guys split up then, and you went off on your own, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then Masters kept going.
That's right. And but look, it's an interesting thing. I went along not expecting to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh, well, this will be a bit like, old blokes shuffling on stage and girls, but I was really surprised. And Dennis would agree with me that some of the acts were just fantastic. Some of the people had actually really improved.
Yeah.
Not everyone. Some were really good. They were all really good. But,
Yeah.
Well, most of them on the show. I mean, we Twilight's got back together again for the show, but Glenn, of course, has gone from one group to the from Twilight's to
Axiom,
then a little of a band. Of course, he's carved out a solo career of his own, so he's never stopped working. And so it didn't take long for the Magic to get together with them. And then Normie Rowe works constantly. Ronnie Burns is just one of those people who is ageless. I mean, he sounds as good now as he did 40 years ago. Johnny Young, of course, well, he's got all things happening now, of course, with these new young talent time, but it all came together extremely well, and everybody, we didn't have any passengers on stage, did we, Mike? They were all,
no, it was fantastic.
They were all terrific.
I've really enjoyed the show.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't go there to enjoy it. I went there because I just was curious, but I just really enjoyed the show, and missed you, Jim. Missed you guys on the show. I'm glad you're doing this one.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Well, you're bringing along your old mate Glenn Wheatley for this. So.
Yeah, he's getting off the John Farnham thing at the moment. He's saddled him up for a while there, and but I think he's got a bit of a gap now. So he said he'd love to do it, and it'd be great to have him on board. He hasn't played with us for a lot. Well, he played with some of the Long Way to the Top shows he did with us. But he's not rehearsed in a full set. He couldn't do a full set with us. But of course, each artist only does 3 or 4 songs. So he can do that all right. And then Colin Burgess, the drummer, who was the original drummer, and Peter Tilbrook, who was in the original band as well. So it's basically the original, and myself, original lineup, except one guy. We're using a young guy.
Just to get the average down.
Yeah, to get the age average down. Davey Lane, who is a fantastic player, and he played on my solo album, and he knows the Masters Apprentices stuff backwards. He's fantastic. I hope he doesn't play it backwards. But anyway. And he's going to be sort of, I guess, he's going to be the glue that keeps it together a bit, because Glenn hasn't played in a while, and Colin, they might be a little bit rusty, so he'll keep it all together. But Pete Tilbrook plays, I do, and Colin does play. It's only Glenn really that isn't a constant player. But it's going to be great. It really is, because we're doing the 4 big hits, and people seem to love those. The songs have lived on. So it'll be a great night. I'm really looking forward to it.
So turn up your radio.
Turn up your radio.
Let's see if I can guess the 4.
Okay.
Okay, so it'd be turn up your radio.
Yes.
It'd be Elevator driver?
Elevator driver?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep, okay, Because I Love You.
Correct, you got three of the four.
Three of the four.
It's out of
Married
those-
and Dead or Undecided? Which
Neither.
one? Neither?
Neither, because there was a bigger one than that. There was Living in a Child's
Ah,
Dream.
Living in a Child's Dream.
And that was the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Undecided is the one we...
Couldn't have a set without living in a child.
No, you couldn't.
Psychedelic.
It was psychedelic. Of course it was. It was from the acid era.
Yeah.
As opposed to now, which is the acid reflux era.
They were the acid fruit drops.
Acid reflux era now, mate.
Yeah.
I heard you, boy.
Ah, shit.
So,
we that's one of the Cotton, Keays and Morris jokes at the stage.
So, Little
drag
Boy
that.
Sad, Lonely Boy, I would imagine must-dos for you.
Yeah, Little Boy Sad, Lonely Boy. And a couple of surprises. We're going to do a couple of songs from the era. Haven't really decided on them yet, but not necessarily ours, because MPD used to do medleys. We always did a medley when we came on stage. So everything is really in a medley till we get to Lonely Boy and Little Boy Sad. Mm-hmm. We might have a surprise ending too, but it's a medley type of show. MPD was a visual act, really. Probably more so than most bands at the time, and we only ever did 20-25 minutes because we'd be exhausted after that. But it's a bit. We're putting on a bit of a show, I hope, and we're going to dress for the occasion. I've got my purple flares out of the wardrobe, and that's got one leg covered. Yeah. That was about 60 kilos ago. I've been saying that, in the old days it was fantastic because the girls would throw their knickers at us. Now they throw their incontinence pads.
Yes, of course.
But and they're heavy. But they can be heavy. But no, I'm really excited about it, and I know Jim is, and we have remained mates all through this time.
We have.
Which is surprising, really, because I don't like anybody normally. Neither does Jim. No, it's great. We've remained
But
mates.
I've lost a couple of kilos. The police and the customs got that though. But apart from that, I think we all look pretty good, don't we? Eh?
Yeah.
We've all shaped up pretty well, boys.
And what about you, Dennis? Any one-liners to come from you, or are we going to leave it up to these two?
No, I'll leave it to the experts. But the thing about it is that, apart from the audience enjoying the show, sitting there watching it and singing all the songs, the artists themselves really had a ball. And the opportunity of working together for a start after such a long time and catching up with some people they may not have seen. Yeah. It was like turning the clock back forward as though, the last 40 years didn't happen. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's just a great buzz backstage. Everybody's had a really good time.
Now, the show ran from, I think, 64 to 67?
Correct.
Yeah. And it came to an end because of miming was being banned, or what was happening in television at that point that sort of changed the format and affected the show to take it off the air?
I don't know that it was so much...
The miming, no, because Commotion came after that and they mimed then.
Yeah, no. The miming thing, look, what we did was we were the forerunners of a number of television shows. I mean, we created, through the Go Show, a lot of bands and a lot of artists like the Normie Rows and all of the people on our show really got their exposure for the first time on television on the Go Show. Up until then, we had a bandstand, which was pretty in Sydney with Brian Henderson and the Collar and Tie, Sandy Scott and Cole Joe. They had their own little sort of family up there. And Johnny O'Keefe had Sing 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 going on Channel 7. And it was very hard for Melbourne artists to get exposure up there. When we started the Go Show, I think the only artists that had appeared in Sydney on Sydney television would have been Johnny Chester, Merv Benton and Colin Cook and Betty McQuaid. That would have been about it. So once we created the opportunity for these people, the people we have on our show now, to appear on television, it all of a sudden it created a pop industry in Melbourne, and Melbourne really became the pop music centre. It's where the Twilights and the Masters Apprentices and all of those bands coming out of Adelaide, they all came to Melbourne, and that's where they all started. And it was a very exciting time for everybody because we were all new. I mean, I was 23 years of age producing the show. So
you seem like an old man to me.
Yeah, I know. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But so what happened then was that our first 6 months were local, we're only in Melbourne, and then the Channel O people, bearing in mind that we went on air with a new television network called Channel O, which is now Channel 10. But up until the Go Show, there'd only been Channel 9 and Channel 7 and the ABC. So it was the third commercial channel, and so they took a bit of a punt on our show, but it was successful. And then after 6 months, the original compere, Alan Field, who came out to compare the Beatles tour, he was English, he left and went back to England, and Ian Turpie came in to compare the show, and then sometime down the track, Johnny Young came in. So we had our
Wiley as well at one stage.
No, that was
wasn't it?
And then towards and then right toward John went to London, and right towards the end, the last 20 odd shows that we did, Ronnie Burns compared it. So we had the different. But what really created the problem was that Channel O then looked and thought, we've got a really good thing here. So of course they then developed. They then put Commotion on the air. Well, Commotion ran. We were a 1 hour television show going to air at 7:30 on a Monday night. Commotion went to air at 6 o'clock Monday to Friday from 6 to 6:30, but it was a miming show. So what would happen then is the only way that artists could appear on the show would be to mime their records. So everybody came along with their records.
Didn't they mime other people's records?
Yeah,
too?
And they could, and
the Commotion
Melbourne
crew.
used to mime.
Yeah.
But what happened then was, and if say Normie Rowe came on or MPD Limited came on, they would do a Monday. They did three shows a week. Because they recorded all 5 on the same day. So it'd be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. MPD singing "Little Boy Sad." And then on the following Monday, MPD would come on to the Go Show and do Little Boy Sad. So what happened was it created an overexposure after a period of time. And at the end of the day, we ran our course, and that was about it. It had nothing to do with the miming side of it.
So it's your fault, Mike. You overexposed yourself.
The unique thing about the Go Show was it was a bit more funky than even Johnny O'Keefe's show. They called him the Wild One, but it wasn't particularly wild, the show.
No.
Brian Henderson's show, you had to wear a tie and your hair couldn't come down over your collar.
Very
Go's
conservative.
show was much more funky. It doesn't look like it now. It looks like quite cheesy, but in its time... It was really
Well, just like this show where you have to wear a tie.
Absolutely,
as well,
I've got a tie. And the other thing was it was all Australian. And that really made it unique, and it just goes to show the kids all flocked to that show, and Australian acts could attract an audience, whereas we were drowning in those days even in US music and European music, but now even more so. I mean, I won't mention TV shows, but they've been great in promoting music from outside of Australia, but not so good at promoting the modern shows, promoting local music. So it was a wonderful opportunity for us to have a career.
And the other thing was that we went to air live. We didn't record the show. We went to air live with it. And, of course, the kids came into the audience, and every night was like a pop concert. They were screaming, and they were throwing streamers and teddy bears at Normie.
Gonks, they used to call them.
Yeah, unbelievable. And it just had that amazing atmosphere in the studio every show. It was
So
terrific.
those old tapes still exist then? Well, they were obviously recorded. So are there any Go shows in existence anymore? What happened to it?
Johnny Young was walking past a rubbish bin out at Channel O sometime after the Go Show finished, and he saw a bunch of old tapes literally in a rubbish bin, and he inquired as to what they were, and they were the old Go Shows, or some of them, not all of them, because what they used to do in those days, everything was on videotape. So they'd record the show on video, and video was quite expensive. So,
Well, no, it was actually Kinney.
or Kinney.
It was the stage before video, but they could wipe it over.
So what they do is they do one show, and then the next week they'd come back and they'd use the same Kenny to record the next show.
That's right, tape over it.
There was no such thing as a stockpile of Go shows from 1 through to 224.
Wow.
But what John did was he actually bought the whatever was left, and there were a few, so he has ownership of the Go shows, as he did with Young Talent Time. He owns the Young Talent Time, the old shows as well, which has been great for us because in our concerts we are using footage from that era for a number of things during the show. And of course we've had access to that footage, which has been terrific.
There's very little kept from the 60s, though, in Australia because of that reason, because they taped over stuff. Commotion was the same. Uptight was the same. Happening 70 was the same. And because at one stage, I wanted to try and find as much old Masters footage as I could. And there's so little around that, it was quite disappointing that they'd got rid of it.
Yeah, I'm really sad too. We did film clips. We did one at the Tower of London and one at Pinocchio's in Melbourne, and they were shot on 16mm, and they'd be wonderful to have now. This is a bit of old, just for the archives. And I've had the National Sound Archives ring me many times asking if I've got old recordings, and I've got a few, but not really what I should have. They've all disappeared. It's a shame.
Disappointing.
But this is a bit of living history anyway.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Dennis before about, have you got any one-liners to say, but Dennis is a promoter and they're all miserable sods. Look, they never smile. They're just in it for the money, really.
That's true.
Those are all sods.
That's true.
Well, let's talk about the artists that are on there.
Too busy counting the money.
The Go Show in March around Australia this time too,
Yeah,
which is quite good. MPD Limited and the Masters Apprentices. Dinah Lee, Ronnie Burns, Normie Rowe, Johnny Young, Bobby Bright. I'm going to miss a few here. Ian Turpie's coming back, isn't he? Marcie Jones.
Marcie Jones.
She brought the house down in the last show.
Yeah, she really works.
Bev
And Darryl
Cotton,
Cotton, who I work with, I've got to remember him.
So we've got from the first show, we've kept obviously Johnny Young and Ronnie Burns and people like that who compared the show, and then and Normie is back with us, but we've got some new faces like Dinah Lee and Darryl Cotton and MPD Limited and Masters Apprentices. So we've got a new batch of people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Darryl Cotton. Yeah.
So hopefully it'll work as well as the previous one. I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
And the lineup's great, and the songs everybody are doing is going to be great. So it's going to be an exciting show.
Yeah, well, check it out. The Go Show in Australia. Dennis Smith, Jim Keays, Mike Brady. Thank you for joining us here at Noise 11.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.